Hello there, and welcome everyone to this edition of the podcast. We haven't seen Ralph for a little bit. As you can see, he's been painting his living room. How are you doing, Ralph?
Yeah, good, excellent. Yeah, this T-shirt used to be black,
Yeah,
and now it's not. But yeah,
nice, nice.
I was outside. I was in the sunshine. It was beautifully.
Yeah,
I was having a really nice time. And then you guys, you called me up and said, "Look, you need to do the podcast." And now I'm here.
yeah, nice. Good, good. Well,
Well,
anyway,
anyway,
it's absolutely lovely to see you as always. And today, we're going to be talking about two things. One, we're going to be talking about Trump's master plan, and secondly, we're going to be talking about the death of search. So, in terms of the master plan, I have been sort of coming to the sort of conclusion that maybe Trump's behaviour with regards to global trade, there is actually a plan to it. Actually, just as I said that, on my screen, a picture of Trump just literally popped up just there, and he was fully
seriously,
clothed. Don't worry. So I'm wondering whether this is a really, really, really raw, basic, only my opinion thing, right? So bear with me. So I think he comes in, he stirs things up, he makes everyone sit up by giving them the worst scenario in terms of trade. So we're going to put 25% on this. If you're China, we're going to put 140 odd percent on you. And everyone thinks, what do we do? Well, that's the polite version. And then he says, well, look, we can do bilateral trade deals with everyone, and we can reduce that rate. So the idea is then that gives America the power. It makes them the center of everything. Whereas, if you are part of a trade partnership, it's a bit more difficult because everyone kind of has to agree on the same thing and then they sign up. Whereas with a bilateral agreement, I would have thought that it's a lot easier for you to change your mind, which Trump is prone to doing. Um, anyway, so I think that he's come in, he stirred things up, he's given them the worst case scenario. Then he said, actually, maybe you could make it better. That brings everyone in. They have to do something because they want to avoid the worst case scenario. Um, and then they get, then basically he looks like a hero because he said to the electorate, I'm going to do something, and clearly he's getting people to the table. He is agreeing to stuff, so he looks like he's doing a great job. Um, it would be different, for instance, if he had from the off said, "Okay, UK, we're going to put 10% tariffs on you." Starmer would have said, "Oh no, that's so terrible. Please don't put 10% on us." Oh no. Whereas if Trump has said, okay, right, we're putting 25% on you, and then he says 10%, then you're thinking, oh well, actually 10% is not too bad. And so I kind of it is very basic, but it looks like to me like it's working because he's getting people now. Um, so he does that. He gets everyone in. They do a deal. He then looks like a hero. Um, and the money's, then as he is announcing these trade deals over time, the markets think, oh, this is good, and the markets start going up, because they think, okay, trade deals not as bad as we thought, because they've reacted to what they potentially think is the worst case scenario. So not as bad as we thought, it's better, and the trade deals keep coming in, and he can keep saying, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did, and the fact that probably, prices for consumers for the weekly shop are going to go up, he can then say, look, as I said before, it's going to be a short-term pain for long-term gain. This is the short-term pain, but look at what I've been doing, and then he can almost like distract them from being annoyed for a bit, and then that gives him time before other things start kicking in. So anyway, it seems to me, I it seems to me that may be his plan. He gives everyone the worst, and then he brings them back from the brink. They feel grateful. He looks like a hero. That's basically it. You don't agree with me, I know, but let's hear what you have to say to shoot me down in flames. Thank you very much.
Oh God, no, I don't. Excuse me, guys. I don't so much disagree. Maybe what you're painting is a possible scenario. This sounds like the Doctor Evil plan
Yeah.
behind. Excuse me for my voice. It's just been tariffed. Sorry now. So now I'm better. It sounds like a Doctor Evil plan.
Mhm.
I think that it is a common theme to believe that Trump has got a strategy behind his erratic pronouncements. And I've said this for at least 2 years, or probably to his first term as well. But now people are sort of more or less seeing that as well, and it's got a word now. It's called sanity washing. Just like whitewashing or greenwashing is to make something appear green, environmentally friendly, or to make something appear above board ethically, this is to make something appear sane when it isn't. Now, this doesn't mean that this is not his idea behind it.
Mm.
It just means that if it is, in fact, his idea, well, then it ain't a very good idea, because it still reminds me of sort of like a mafia racketeering scheme, So dude comes into your shop, goes, "You have to pay me 100 quid a week, and in return, I'm going to protect you." And the guy says, "Well, protect me from what?" "Well, from me," says the guy, as he wrecks your shop.
Nice, nice, nice.
So, um, so I say that with a laugh and a smile, and hopefully this is received in a light-hearted way, because it's meant to be light-hearted. But you see, I made a few notes while you were speaking. I mean,
You weren't just
the
doodling
thing is this. Well, actually, I was, but I'm trying to I'm trying I'm trying to style out.
then.
Um,
Yeah, nice, nice.
so you see, the thing is this: if this is his plan, then his plan is still to impose tariffs on the world.
Mhm.
If this is his plan, then it's just the plan to find a mechanism or a means of how to do this best. But tariffs are bad for the United States.
Mhm.
Let's just pause and remember that. The imposition of tariffs on foreign countries is negative for the United States economy.
Mhm.
The United States incumbents pay that tariff to the Treasury as a tax, and they then pass it on to the consumer in the form of higher prices, and that is inflation, and therefore the consumer, the United States citizen, is going to have to pay higher prices for imported goods.
Mhm.
As they then are going to demand domestically produced goods more, the price of those domestic goods is going to go up. So tariffs only ever have one influence or one impact, and that is inflation.
Mm.
Yes, you might argue, and those, of course, the protectionists would argue and do argue this. Well, I mean, obviously, this is not designed to make things more expensive. That's the sort of disadvantage which we have to take into account. The long-term goal is to onshore manufacturing, which has left the United States. Remember, it has left the United States and other developed service industries or industrialized industries for a reason. And the reason is that as these economies develop, the cost of wages and the cost of salaries increases. So this is why Nike doesn't sew up their trainers in Arizona, but in Vietnam.
Mm.
And so now we've been through this before. This is now the situation is that the Nike trainers are going to triple in price, again, for the disadvantage of the US customer. Trump, of course, will argue, well, the savior there is to bring Nike sewing machines out from Vietnam back to the US mainland, which is, of course, the savior, because then we have manufacturing back in the US. Well, please remember, the fact that they went to Vietnam in the first place is that the salary increase, the cost of labor in the US is higher than it is in Vietnam, and that is not negative in itself. It is the consequence of a developed industrialized economy. Second point, if you do Apple phones, well, Apple phones are complicated, they are high technology. If they were to be produced in the US, which they can't really because the supply chains are far too complicated to replace or to mitigate, if they were to be manufactured in the US, or indeed if German cars, for example, were to be manufactured there, they would be manufactured in high-tech manufacturing plants where 80% of the work is robotized and automated. So again, you don't actually bring jobs back to the United States. So this is just a quick reminder of where we are with tariffs. Meaning that if indeed the goal is all of this, and it is the goal, we know this, if we read what's the chairman of the advisory board's name again? I keep forgetting his name. Apologize, guys.
Miran, something he said.
Miran, Stephen Miran.
Yeah.
If we read his essay, then it becomes quite clear that the strategy which I just outlined is in fact what they wish to do. And then to your point, now we can say, well, is it his master plan, basically his Dr. Evil plan, his strategy behind the apparent chaos to instigate these moves? It might be, but if it is, then it is the plan of a bully. Because basically, and you might of course say, well, so what? I mean, then he's a bully, but he may still be succeeding in what he is trying to achieve. And he may well be, but if you look at the numbers a little bit, if we want to answer the question whether this can be a blueprint for other countries, because as you said, I mean, lots and lots of countries are going to line up and try to make deals with him, as the UK, of course, has just done. Well, if you just a few numbers, I'll read this out to you guys. This percentage, which I'm going to quote, is the percent of total trade the US has with a particular country. And the top 4 countries here is, first of all, the EU, the single market. 16% of total trade of the US is done with the EU. Second up, Mexico, 16%, Canada, 13%, China, 10%. And then we have nothing for a long time, and then the UK comes in at number 9 with not just 3%. So the UK is the junior partner in this UK-US deal, which we've just seen. They don't account for all that much. They're not calling the shots here. It's the US which is calling the shot in this particular deal. And then also the second number here to look at is, what is the GDP of these countries? How important are they? Again, first up, European Union, single market, $18 trillion of GDP combined. Mexico, which I mentioned as number 2 of the United States trade partners, only $2 trillion in GDP, so not that important as an economy. Canada, 2 trillion, no more important. China, 18 trillion. So in other words, the only country, or the 2 countries here, who you would think might actually have clout in any US in any US trade agreement or in negotiations are just the EU and China. But then the EU also is 26 countries, and they are voting by majority vote. So it is only really China. And interestingly, that is the only country which is basically saying to America, sorry guys, I mean, we're not going to be waltzed over here. We're going to retort. And as they do, Trump is caving in. It's the classical bully. If you give them, I mean, it's the cliche of the bully. I've never really faced any bully down. I don't know what they would do. They probably hit me in the face if that's right. But but the cliche is that if a bully approaches you, you just basically you stand your ground and they back off. In the specific case between China and the US, this is happening. Trump is backing off, not a lot, but he's giving signs that he's ready to reduce the tariffs on China. So in the end, so to come back to your thesis, is this a master plan? I wouldn't call it master plan because master plan implies that there is a reasoned strategy behind something. I would not be surprised if, however, it is Trump's intent to do precisely what you just said. Just basically say, okay, now the situation is here. You have like, let's use the UK-US deal specifically. So Trump said, now the situation is in the automotive sector that there is a 2.5% tariff. I'm going to put 25 percentage points on top of that. So now the tariff is 27.5%. Ha ha, how do you like that? And the UK goes, actually, we don't like that very much. Can we have less, please, sir? And Trump goes, oh, all right, you can have 10%. And the UK is like, major deal. This is absolutely fantastic. This is good. We're negotiating something here. Net effect is tariffs have just gone up from 2.5% to 10%, which is and here we need to position this subtly, which is in Trump's view positive, because he believes higher tariffs are positive. It is, however, negative for the United States because higher tariffs are going to damage the United States economy. So from the point of view of somebody who believes higher tariffs are good for the US economy, you may be right. There may be a plan behind this to shock people into a really bad case scenario and then come back from that and impose a tariff which is higher still, but not quite as bad as the original threat used to be. The reason that I wouldn't agree with the master plan is that it is, of course, not positive for the United States economy. But yeah, just to conclude, I think you may well have a point. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just disagreeing with a painting of that to be a genius move, because it is clearly just harming the United States, and it is also harming those countries who have the clout, and one would also probably have to say the domestic political mechanism, autocratic countries, to stand up to him, and that's only China at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we'll obviously see how that goes. It's going to take a while anyway, right? Anyway, let's talk now.
Well, just as a comeback from this, because you asked me the question before, we discussed this on the show, how much of the tariffs are going to remain and when he's going to backpedal. And I didn't know, but I did say what I do believe is that the 10% floor, that's going to stay. And that so far has rung true. The 10% floor has stayed in all of the erratic ups and downs, and I think that's likely to stay. But anyway, continue. I interrupted you.
Sorry.
This is bad. I apologize.
No, that's right. I almost then did this for the second time since I've spoken to you, which is I almost managed to rip off the thing, because I've not got my usual headphones today. So anyway, right, okay, let's move on to the next one. So death of search. Now, this is something actually I did want to talk about last week, but couldn't talk with Ralph last week for various reasons. But anyway, and they were all my fault, by the way. So
I was hoping you said that.
Yeah. My contention is we are now seeing the death of search as we know it. for many years, Google's obviously done incredibly well out of it. They've managed to use it to generate a lot of income. But just over a week ago, I mentioned something in Watson's Daily about how there are agencies out there now that are advising companies on what they need to do to increase their chances of appearing on searches in things like ChatGPT. Now, that would suggest that traditional search that you get with Google, and where you have to have certain key phrases and keywords and all that kind of stuff, and that all is all part of the whole your SEO, your search optimization, search engine optimization strategy. To get you up there, because basically, if you're a business or something, you want to be on the front page. You don't want to be on the second page of Google or whatever, because no one ever looks there. You need to be on that front page. And, many businesses have been built out of advising people on how to do that. But anyway, my contention is it's changing. The fact that you've got agencies that are looking to try to help you optimize the chances of you being on a ChatGPT search, for example. I think that it's changing, and we saw that Alphabet's share price went down this week on the news that Apple was looking at various AI-assisted search engines like, for example, Perplexity. So anyway, I think this is very interesting. I think this is going to be a future theme. It's going to be interesting from what the capabilities are going to be. But it's also going to be interesting for how will companies like Microsoft react to this, and will they have to change their offering. But anyway, I think it is the death of traditional search, but what do you think, Ralph?
It might be the death of traditional search, but maybe we should remove the word death. In fact, this is not my thinking. I just ask Copilot what Copilot thinks of this.
The of search. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if we take death out of that sentence, that's what we end up with. The of search.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a bit. It's not as eloquent as I would want to be. So let's put death back in.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Please carry on.
So I asked Copilot what it thinks of this, and it said search engines aren't dead, but they're definitely evolving. So there's the answer. Shall we stop? Might as well just put an inflatable Ralph AI here, and it would just basically
the way you were moving your arms just then,
wisdom.
It did look like one of those ones that you see that do the the thing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like petrol stations in the US.
Yeah.
Auto dealerships.
There we go. Yes.
Anyway,
yeah.
Joking aside,
mm-hmm.
So I agree with Copilot. I don't think they're dead, but they are. I think the entire product proposition of search is going to change, because in the olden days, we can say now, several years ago, you had to be reasonably specific about what you put into the search engine prompt in order to get a usable answer. And these were mostly sort of factual questions you put in, whatever pastry chef courses in London, and it would list a few websites of companies which do that. But you would not be able to say what are the best ways to learn how to be a pastry chef in London. That wouldn't really give you a good range of answers. But you can do that now. Now you can do this even in Google, and it would give you a little AI summary at the top. And the AI summary is often very good. It sort of delivers a readable text. It sounds sensible. It weighs some pros and some cons. You have a button which you can press which says more detail, and it comes up with more detail and you feel well informed. And so I think if you think about what search is supposed to do, that's a better product for the consumer. So that's the first point. I think that search is, I hate to repeat what an AI told me, but it's true. Search is evolving. And the next bit which I'd like to highlight is that Google used to be the absolute master in the field. So they had more than 90% market share in search. They have gone down to below 90% of that. So they're still the absolute gorilla basically in the marketplace, but they have reduced in terms of the search hits. Now, my question is, I don't know the answer, but my guess would be this is not necessarily because people do not use Google anymore so much because they don't like Google. This may also be the case, but that needs not be the case. What is also possible is that those search engines, which previously were just not very interesting, like Yahoo and Bing, for example, are now increasingly delivering usable results because of the AI enhancement which they now all have. For example, Bing. I mean, who used Bing? Hands up. I don't see any hands up. I mean, nobody used Bing. I didn't even know what it was. And now, of course, with Copilot,
no one ever said, "Oh, I'll just Bing the answer." The answer the question.
Exactly.
You know, someone asks you the questions. "Oh, just Bing it." You know, I'll just Bing the answer. No one ever said that, did they? It's all, I'll just Google it. You know, I Google. Yeah, no one said I'll Bing it. Sorry, I just thought I'd point that out.
Exactly. No, that's an excellent point. That's exactly right. Or Yahoo it or
Yeah.
something. You know, you're right. And maybe people may not say that either in the future. But by the way, if you ask Copilot what it thinks of Bing, it says it's brilliant. Bing is absolutely excellent search engine, but maybe it's biased.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
Bing and other competitors are now increasingly delivering usable results more than they used to because of the AI enhancement. And I think that is just where the world is going to go. It is every search engine is going to be AI enhanced to the point that you don't even notice it. Google, for example, you don't really notice it. The only thing which is different now is that it comes up with this AI summary at the top. A final point which I wanted to mention or to take up what you said. Google developed remarkable technological ability by doing the SEO, search engine optimization, and other services.
Yeah.
Services which sit well within, indeed are required by the specific dynamics of the search engine technology, the marketplace, how they work. But you see, an AI-empowered search engine will also have certain technological dynamics which I don't trust myself to fully understand or well, even partially understand and describe here. But we all know how LLMs work in general. They go through written text which they have been trained on and predict the likelihood of the next word from that text, and then pick out a word from a distribution of words, and it is not the most likely which they pick out, but a word which is sort of additionally randomized through a nonlinear factor in the linear equation, which is the LLM. So what I'm talking about here is the sort of underlying dynamic. And it will still be interesting for businesses to prioritize their search hits. It would still be interesting for Watson's Daily to come top in a search hit on commercial awareness, for example. But there may be other ways of doing this. And this is where I need to basically fall silent because I don't know whether it is possible to influence the prioritization process of an LLM in any particular way. I don't see that to be easy, but then I am not an expert in the field, and there may be ways in which this can be done. And so what today is SEO, search engine optimization, tomorrow might be whatever sort of word placing within the
CEO, chat
within
engine optimization. Here we go.
yeah, that sort of thing. I mean, the sort of highlighting of particular choices for the LLM to pick rather than the distributed choices which come up through the linear equation and the nonlinear elements enshrined in it. But yeah, so I don't know where the story is going to go. I must admit, I like Copilot and these services. I wouldn't use ChatGPT because it's a separate thing, but I would certainly like. I'm using Copilot and some others which I don't have to access separately on the internet, which I can just basically access from my browser. And the texts which I'm getting are now well written. They sound reasoned. As long as the user remembers that LLMs are hallucinating, and they still are hallucinating, and maybe has the time to fact check bits and pieces, it's a great thing. I think I think they're definitely evolving, to read out what Copilot told me.
Well, that's very good. Yeah, I mean, I think that I do want. Well, I would have thought in theory it's going to be difficult for them to push a specific source in a way. Well, I suppose they could change the algo or something. It's just that it seems to me that when you ask one of these search engines, these chatbots a question, they're basically pulling it from so many different sources simultaneously. And I guess that let's just use Watson Staley as an example, for instance. If it happens that a lot of sources say that Watson's Daily is the best source for commercial awareness, then how are you going to stop? I mean, you're going to have to actually write something, or you're going to have to change the algo to specifically deprioritize it because Watson's Daily is not paying. Therefore, it will be deprioritized. But then you're making it arguably less useful. Well, I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I mean, I suppose you could argue the same with Google now, but then again, with Google, I mean, I don't know whether you do this, but if I Google search something like I don't know. Well, anyway, if I Google search something and then I see at the top sponsored and then blah, I don't even read it. I don't. I just
No, me neither.
I blank it out and go to the real one.
That's what I do.
So yeah, I mean, you would have thought that there's a possibility of doing it, but in a way you'd hope that when you're using these bots that they're trying to get you the best and most relevant information that you're actually looking for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would be skeptical whether you can go into the learning data in any way and alter that raw material in such a way that it prioritizes a particular expression. I don't think it's possible. But of course, the output could be so changed or prioritized. But that might actually be counterproductive anyway, because it is precisely because, let's just assume for the moment that LLMs work and that there's no hallucination, everything can be trusted. Then it would be exactly because there is no external prioritization because somebody pays for it or sponsors it, that the text or the result would be more trustworthy. Where it is not trustworthy is because of hallucination, etc. But to some extent, we can check this by looking at other sources which are quickly available, like Wikipedia pages, etc. In the case of Copilot, it is particularly easy because they give you the annotated sources, so I can click here on it gives me the sources from which it prioritized it, Investopedia, for example, and other things. So you can just quickly fact check what it says there. So that's positive. And so the only other thing is this sort of optimization. That's not always negative, though. I also don't tend to read any of the highlighted links which are sponsored. But when I put in whatever good spa in London or whatever, I don't want 500 businesses coming down, which maybe have 10 customers a year. I do want the major spas. You see, so there is certain prioritization is not negative.
Yeah.
And if that can be, but again, that would be built in, I think, to the LLM, because let's just remember, they're predicting the position of the next word by reference to a probability distribution. The probability distribution is, of course, how many words are used most often. So if I put in who's the best commercial awareness provider, then Watson's Daily comes up because nothing else comes up because you're the best.
Okay, I think we'll stop
about,
it there. Let's just stop the
yeah,
let's just stop the podcast there.
Let's stop it here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What a great place to finish
Who
there.
is the shiny beacon thought leader on political and economical commentary?
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Peter Watson comes up.
Yeah.
I would really love my name to come up, but it never comes up.
Yeah.
I actually just to finish maybe on this.
Yeah.
I I asked Copilot and ChatGPT, who is Ralph Hepken?
Yeah.
And the response is, there does not seem to be an individual of this name.
Nice.
We don't know. This person doesn't appear to exist. Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
No, very good. Very good. I mean, I actually, again, so the reason why this kind of, in a way, I mean, it kind of came up recently, was someone posted on LinkedIn saying, if you've not chat GPT'd yourself, you're lying. And I thought, well, I haven't actually. So I thought I'd put in there. I did put in, how do I improve my commercial awareness? And it came up. Peter Watson's Daily, Peter Watson. But I don't know whether that was because I'm Peter Watson. I'm constantly writing about it, so it knows. So I don't really know what happens. But anyway, yes. And the other thing as well, I do think is funny at the moment is I don't think you can go a day in your LinkedIn feed without someone in there saying, if you don't use AI, you're dead, or something like that. Predicting all these dire consequences if people don't use AI. Now, it is kind of getting a bit boring, to be honest. But yeah, there's so much of this common ground.
People love to do that, but let's be honest. I mean, how good is that as a consumer product so far? I mean, I've tried to use it a lot, and so far I'm not particularly enamored by it, to be honest. Yes, the AI enhanced search bots, they're pretty good now, and it's getting better all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to write the last chapter in that book which I'm currently writing, and it's a very complicated thing. It uses lots of computing power I would need for that. And on that one, despite the hype, it's not very good yet, to be honest. But the pace at which it develops is, of course, also fantastic. But people, we discussed the hype cycle on the show maybe last year at some point. And I think AI is now getting so much in the mainstream and so well known that the hype cycle is certainly setting in. So when people say, if you don't use AI, you're dead, there's a certain, I would not call it virtue signaling. There's technological signaling here. I'm using AI and I know how to do it and I understand the significance of it. And yeah, of course, it is a transformational technology. We know that. But how user friendly is it, or how usable is it? What is the use case of AI
Yeah.
in a normal person's daily routine? That I would still have to question.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, one of the things I've noticed is a lot. Obviously, I talk to a lot of students and young professionals, and it seems to me that maybe in the past, where you have a question, you would Google it, not Bing it, right? You would Google it. Maybe then, if it was something like, how do I change the oil in my car? And you
Yeah.
ask on YouTube. But it seems to me that the first port of call for most young people now is ChatGPT. So if they don't know something, it'll be like, I'll quickly look on ChatGPT and look at it and then go on from there. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this, and it does give you a very good rundown. Changing your car's oil is a straightforward process, it says, and then it has 7 points: gather supplies, lift the car, drain the old oil, etc. So it's very well structured. It's very readable. But then point number 2, lift the car. Well, how am I going to do that exactly? you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good.
then it says use a jack. Okay, a jack, I know how to use a jack, but I'm talking about oil here. This is not changing a tire. So the
Yeah,
car has to be hoisted up higher.
yeah,
Or ramps, it says. Use a jack or ramps.
yeah.
That's the ramp which everybody has in their driveway, isn't it? So this is kind of what I mean about this. I mean, it
That is
sounds very
brilliant.
nice,
That is brilliant. I mean, let's talk about this.
is
This
it
is
usable?
yeah. This is brilliant. I mean, we didn't. This was not rehearsed. I mean, literally, I
No,
just said
no,
that
not
up
at
the top
all.
of my head, and then you just came out with that absolute gold, that nugget of gold. So look, although I think before it was a good place to finish, I mean, this is topped even that. So I think we'll leave it there. But thank you so much, Ralph, as always, for being the legend that you are on this podcast. So thank you so much. And everyone listening,
It's been a
thank you
pleasure
very
as
much.
always.
Yes, we'll leave it there. Bye.
Thank you very much, guys, for having
Bye.
me.
Bye.